It's been a long time since I've seen this much Christmas festiveness at Tapestry, with lights and trees and a holiday boutique and a bake sale all on one Sunday. I know that Christmas caroling is coming up. That will be a blast. And for the first time after our Christmas Eve service, we're going to have fire pits for roasting marshmallows. We are bringing the festive this year. Before we dive headlong into the festivities, today we remember that the holidays can be a difficult time too, for so many reasons. Celia shared this morning about the sense of being between cultures and how American holidays can feel, hollow. Holidays can also shine a spotlight on the loss of the past year. I will always remember the first family Thanksgiving after my grandfather died. He had sat at the head of our family holiday table for as long as I could remember. That year, my uncle carried the burden of fulfilling that seat of honor, and he looked so uncomfortable. So we recited the stories about my grandfather's antics at holiday meals and about his personality quirks. They were, of course, stories that we had heard and told 1,000 times, but we retold them anyway. The first holiday after a loved one dies is rough. You kind of just don't know what to do with yourself. And even without a death, Christmas can have a sense of loneliness to it. That might mean missing family far away. That might mean wishing more than usual that you had a partner to cuddle with or to wake up with on Christmas morning. Holidays can make us wish we had a wider circle of friends. Holidays can be lonely. They can also have the exact opposite challenge. Sometimes we aren't missing family so much as we are suffocated by them. And it is amazing how we know just the right buttons to push to get on one another's nerves. Some people, I suspect many who are raising children, find that the holidays bring a particular financial stress. For some, there's a bittersweet wondering of how many more times we'll get to do this. Sorry to be a bit of a downer naming all of those challenges. I just want you to know that you're not alone. If you feel ambivalent about Christmas or Hanukkah or solstice, if this isn't necessarily the happiest season of all, you are not alone. With those challenges in mind, I want to talk a little bit about healing this week. One of the most challenging things about healing is that it takes time. It can take a whole lot of time. Our story this morning was a reminder of the wonderful resources that we have for healing. We're blessed to live in a time of incredible medical technology, and the people who implement that technology, the nurses, doctors, technicians, therapists, have helped to heal, I'm willing to bet, every single person in this room. We also get healing from family and friends who aren't medical professionals, and the artists and the entertainers that remind us of the goodness of life. Staying open to the healing power available to us is actually an important part of our faith. The UU minister, Josh Powlek, reminds us that there's a life force, a will to live, an innate power to mend, a natural tendency toward repair. We encounter it not only in ourselves, but throughout nature. Remember, starfish regenerate lost arms. Deer regenerate lost antlers. Ecosystems repair damage after earthquakes and oil spills. Trusting in this power may not restore sight to the blind or resurrect the dead. But it will help us remember that we can get out of our body's way so that it can follow a natural process of mending, repair, and adaptation. To let go of some of that stress. Time doesn't heal all wounds. Still, in this bountiful, beautiful world, time can be a powerful ingredient in the healing process. There are no shortcuts. We have to wait. Some say that waiting is a spiritual discipline. I can guarantee you it's not one that I would choose. But sometimes opportunities for growth choose us. I can hardly wait in line at the grocery store without pulling out my phone to distract myself. And it's not a generational thing either. I notice more and more when I'm with my parents how fast they pull out their phones and scroll through infinite pages of distraction. It's hard to know if our impatience is part of the human condition or if it's getting worse with overstimulation. People are so reluctant to just wait that we'll choose distractions that are actually painful. Clinical studies have shown that people choose pain over just waiting with nothing to do. In one test, nearly half of subjects gave themselves a mild electrical shock during 15 minutes of quiet time. We really do not like to wait. And when we're talking about healing, waiting may be a day, a couple of weeks, or years. It might help to think of it in a much smaller increments, though. Meditation practice invites us to pay attention to our breath very often. It's not just to focus on breathing in the abstract or even to notice that you are breathing as an ongoing reality. In meditation, we get more specific. We pay attention to each individual breath, the full cycle of the breath, from empty to full, back to emptiness, and then the next breath. And then the next. Gently noticing each breath like that is an opportunity to let go of just about everything else, even if just for a tiny moment. Those breaths aren't cumulative. They aren't leading to a goal. It's just one breath. Eckhart Tolle says, one conscious breath is a meditation. One conscious breath is a meditation. You can do it anywhere and just about any time. As we're talking about healing, I do want to address a couple of assumptions that sometimes come up. One is the assumption that healing is a reflection of the effort or moral or intellectual fortitude of a person. With a library of self-help books, diets, 12-step programs, pills, herbal remedies, it can seem that anything is fixable if we just try hard enough. But sometimes illnesses have no cure. Sometimes the brokenness is larger than the resources currently available to address it. Every single person longs to be happy and free from suffering. And sickness and brokenness are not a reflection of failure. They're part of being human. And we all, every single one of us, we all are seeking healing of one form or another. The other disclaimer that I want to give about healing is about following your own path. What works for one person might not work for another. And what works for you once might not work for you 5 years down the road. Part of the beautiful diversity of humanity is that we're each made a little differently, and we change. We have different tendencies for storing fat or building muscle. Some of us have injuries that make particular exercises impossible. We have different emotional equilibriums. Yes, people don't talk about this very often, but some folks are hardwired to be a little happier than others. And that equilibrium can be adjusted through a lot of work, but there's a natural resting place, and it's different for each of us. Our backgrounds are delightfully different, coming from all over the world, with an unimaginable variety of emotional resources and wounds that we carry. So do what works for you. With the help of medical and mental health professionals, chart a course for your own healing and your own preferences. I recently heard a healing story from a friend that so perfectly fit the holiday season that I had to share it today. A friend, another UU minister, was having a really rough week and generally holiday season this year. A couple of days ago was the 1-year anniversary of her mother's death. She was feeling pretty down as the holiday responsibilities piled up. One of those several tasks yet to accomplish was shopping for her congregation's annual generosity project. Like a lot of congregations, they adopt a family or two at Christmas. So to get involved, you can buy gifts for a particular person. You get their age and gender and a kind of Christmas wish list. Of course, in the hustle, this colleague has lost the piece of paper that has all the vital information on it, so she had to go back and track down the organizer of the campaign. Once she did, she learned that the person she was shopping for was a woman of her same age, a single mom with 2 kids. She hadn't bought any clothing for herself in 2 years. So with a new mission, this colleague went to the mall and gleefully bought everything on the list, and then some. It turns out that the colleague's mother had been known as an extravagant gift giver, one of those people who shows up with heaping bags of gifts, those people that very clearly prefer to give a gift over receive one. She said that this was the perfect way to spend the anniversary of her mother's death, spending the day shopping for someone else. I did a little research about gift giving. Some say that Christmas gifts are representative of the gifts of the wise men that they brought to Jesus. Well, history tells us that giving gifts was actually a common practice in ancient Rome, and like a lot of Christmas traditions, probably came from pagan origins and Saturnalia and the winter solstice. But I'll offer you a third reason in this darkest time of year when we don't feel so hot ourselves. Sometimes it feels good to do something for someone else. If it worked for the Grinch and old Mr. Scrooge, if giving helped grow their hearts 3 sizes, it may be worth a try. Today, more than anything else in this sermon, I want you to take away the importance of compassion for yourself. Self-compassion is the spiritual equivalent of tending to physical injuries. Minor cuts and bruises may heal without much attention, even though they'd probably benefit from a Band-Aid and some Neosporin. Other wounds, though, take serious care. We would think it dangerous or irresponsible to ignore a broken bone or a major wound. The long-term effects of neglected physical health can be really bad. The same is true for mental and emotional health. Seeing a therapist is an absolutely normal thing to do. No one would dare judge you for going to a doctor to tend to your physical health. There's absolutely nothing wrong with talking with a mental health professional either. Don't expect a miracle. Therapy takes time. Meaningful progress isn't going to happen in 1 or 2 sessions. It takes time. And you probably also know that there is a financial cost involved as well. A lot of insurance plans offer good coverage. Something that a lot of people don't talk about, though, is that a lot of therapists will work on a sliding scale if you need it. Some will work for as little as 1/4 of their billing rate. I may not be supposed to tell you that, I'm not sure. But don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid of the initial price. Advocating for yourself is scary sometimes, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And talking to a therapist online is a good option. For several months of the pandemic, I met with my therapist on Zoom. We both would have preferred to be in person, but online works just fine. Strangely enough, long before we talk to someone else, we can also be conscious of the way we talk to ourselves. Like I said, self-compassion is the spiritual equivalent to tending to physical injuries. In Buddhist tradition, there's a helpful concept called second arrows. When you experience a hardship, that's the initial point of suffering, the first arrow. The first arrow might be a physical wound or an emotional one. It could be big and traumatic, or it could be quite small. Whatever it is, that first cause of some level of suffering is the first arrow. All too often when we experience suffering and the accompanying feelings, we follow that with negative self-judgments. You should be stronger than that, we tell ourselves. You shouldn't be angry. You shouldn't feel sorry for yourself. You should be grateful for what you have. You should be more confident than that. That self-judgment is the second arrow. We inflict upon ourselves a second and completely unnecessary experience of suffering as we become self-critical for the way we respond. And man, those second arrows fly during the holiday season. It can be hard to compassionately acknowledge your negative feelings without judgment. It can be hard to give yourself permission. So if you can't give yourself permission, maybe I can give you permission. You have permission to be sad during the holidays. You have permission to feel stressed out and lonely this time of year. You even have permission to be a little bit cranky if you don't get too carried away with it. So whether you feel it or not, I wish you a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, and a magical solstice. Amen.